Good day, everyone. This is Victoria, History G175 student, and today we're going to talk about broken promises, relationship between the United States and the Philippines. So let's get started. Since 1896, the Philippines struggled for independence with the Philippine Revolution against the Spanish rulers and continued with the Filipino-American War. During the Spanish-American War, the United States wrested the Philippine Islands from Spain, and Filipinos were pleased to be liberated from Spanish rule. Filipinos had been fighting for many years for their independence from Spain. And although temporarily welcomed the Americans' help in that liberation, the Filipinos themselves thought that what they were fighting for was for the independence of the Philippines. When they realized the Americans were trying to occupy and colonize their land, Filipinos began to fight against them. The relationship between the United States and the Philippines during the Spanish-American War was characterized by a complex web of informal alliances, broken promises, and underlying hostility, ultimately leading to a strained and mistrustful dynamic between two nations. Now let's talk about the Philippine Revolution. I want to provide a little background about the Philippine Revolution to give us a clear insight into why Filipino people are so desperate to achieve their independence. So it all started when Filipinos could not bear the periods of tyranny, misconduct, and abuses of the Spanish government, which took control of the Philippines for 300 years. Different provinces of the Philippines joined forces to rise and revolt against the Spanish government, who were all exhausted by the unbearable treatment they experienced at the hands of Spain. The Philippine Revolution is led by Emilio Aguinaldo and established his headquarters in the wild high mountains called Biak na Bato, which in English means cleft rock. Along with his fellow insurgents, there he formed the Republican government of the Philippines in the year 1897. The Spanish government sent people to negotiate a treaty with Aguinaldo. After visiting several times over 5 months, Aguinaldo and his troops finally decided to sign the treaty under a condition. They agreed to pay Aguinaldo 800,000 Mexican dollars in 3 installments. $400,000 for the first installment if Aguinaldo and his associates live free in Hong Kong as their chosen residence, and the rest will be paid when they surrender their arms to the authorities. The first installment was paid, and the revolutionaries faithfully surrendered their arms to the authorities. However, the Spanish Captain General failed to fulfill the agreement and did not pay the rest of the money. So we can see the presence of injustice and betrayal at this time. And Aguinaldo was very frustrated, especially when he knew that he couldn't return to his homeland, the Philippines. Okay. During the exile of Emilio Aguinaldo in Hong Kong, this is also the period where the Spanish-American War took place. Aguinaldo met with the United States consul in Singapore, where he was urged to go back to the Philippines to renew hostilities against the Spaniards with the assurance of United States assistance in gaining Filipino independence. After urging Aguinaldo to resume his hostilities against Spain, the United States promised much greater liberty and more benefits to Filipinos than Spaniards promised. Then Aguinaldo frankly expressed his doubts to the admiral about the possibility that the United States might decline their independence after they defeated Spain, and the Philippines might wage war against the United States. In that case, the United States will certainly defeat the Philippines, for they are worn out after the struggle with the Spaniards. Aguinaldo wants to make their true interest clear between two parties. Aguinaldo asked the commander what they wanted in the Philippines, and the commander replied, quote unquote, "The United States is a great and rich nation and needs no colonies," end quote. Nevertheless, the United States denied any written agreement, saying that, quote unquote, there was no necessity for entering into a formal written agreement because the word of the admiral and the United States consul was in fact equivalent to the most solemn pledge that their verbal promises and assurance would be fulfilled, end quote. Encouraged by this, he decided to lead the revolution again. The Americans fought alongside the Filipinos and rose to crush the power of Spain. And together, they successfully achieved numerous victories. And on June 12, 1898, Emilio Aguinaldo proclaimed the Philippine Declaration of Independence. On the other hand, many leaders from America considered it their duty to civilize and modernize Filipinos, whom they deemed as primitive and requiring American education and oversight. The Americans found the opportunity to expand their influence in Asia and secure their status as global superpower in the Philippines. Therefore, the support of the United States provided to the Philippines was driven by American self-interest rather than a sincere wish to assist Filipinos in their fight for independence. The United States, having achieved victory over Spain, went back to its previous commitment and devised a plan to prepare the Philippines for annexation by the order of President McKinley. President McKinley proclaimed on December 21, 1898, referring to the Treaty of Paris, which stated that, quote-unquote, as a result of victories of American arms, the future control, disposition, and government of the Philippine Islands are ceded to the United States, end quote. Spain turned over the Philippines to the United States in exchange for $20 million, establishing the Philippines as an American colony. The term benevolent assimilation was a term coined by American politicians to legitimize their imperialism and control over the Philippines and promised to bring modernization and civilization to the country positively. Additionally, the proclamation made it clear, saying, quote-unquote, it will be the duty of the commander forces of occupation to announce and proclaim in the most public manner that we come, not as invaders or conquerors, but as friends to protect the natives in their homes, in their employments, and in their personal and religious rights, end quote. However, the policy was often used as a mask to conceal their true intentions of imperialism. While still maintaining a neutral friendship with the United States, the Filipinos soon realized the intolerable, unjust treatments of the Filipinos by American soldiers. There were numerous atrocities committed by American soldiers to Filipino people, which led to an outbreak of hostilities. The Americans failed to keep their promises, making the Filipinos realize the corrupt nature of their statements. A lot of Filipinos were heartbroken and devastated. They once welcomed the Americans and fought alongside them to attain independence from Spain, but in return, they betrayed them and did not keep their promises. The Filipinos had a short period of time experiencing freedom, only to find themselves having to struggle for it once again. The outcome was a violent conflict in which the Filipino army, lacking proper equipment, discipline, and organization, while consolidating its power, was simply no match for the superior technology and strength of the imperial power. From 1899 to 1902, a full-blown war erupted between the United States and the Philippines, which American leaders referred to as the Philippine Insurrection. The fighters from the Philippines utilizes various strategies, which included guerrilla warfare, ambushes, and hit-and-run tactics. Despite being generally ill-equipped and lacking the training and discipline, they made up for these shortcomings with their knowledge of the local terrain. In contrast, the American military capitalized on machines, organization, and technology. Moreover, Americans established concentration camps and employed scorched earth tactics such as burning of the villages and fields, which slaughtered millions of Filipinos. The Filipinos' capacity to resist the Americans was undermined due to the extensive suffering and hunger prevalent among the local population. The acquisition of the Philippines led to a prolonged, brutal war between American troops and Filipino nationalities, making it the primary experience with the hazards and expenses of imperialism. This war lasted significantly longer, cost much more, and resulted in more bloodshed than the Spanish War. Ultimately, The Americans defeated the Filipinos and established the Philippines as a colony. As part of their efforts, the Americans introduced educational policies to assimilate Filipinos into American culture and educate them in English, which today English remains as a subject taught in schools throughout the Philippines. After 48 years of colonization, the Philippines finally gained complete independence from the United States after advocating for self determination and colonization following World War II. The United States' decision to grant independence was viewed as fulfilling its commitment to permitting self rule and recognizing the Filipino struggle for autonomy and aspiration to manage their affairs. In conclusion, the Philippine Revolution and subsequent American colonization of the Philippines were complex events with multifaceted history. While the initial support provided by the United States to the Philippines during the revolution appeared to be based on a shared goal of independence, America's subsequent annexation of the Philippines was driven by self interest as a global superpower seeking to expand its influence into Asia, resulted in the oppression and exploitation of the Philippine people. The events surrounding the Philippine Revolution during the Spanish American War and the relationship between the United States and the Philippines were characterized by a complex web of informal alliances, broken promises, and underlying hostility, ultimately leading to a strained and mistrustful dynamic between two nations. The Filipino American War, which bore many similarities to the Vietnam War, has been largely forgotten in American history. Despite its historical significance, the story was wiped from pages of history books. This is likely due to the discomfort and tension associated with the fact that the United States, once a colony that heroically threw off an empire to become independent, later became an empire itself.